All right. I don't know if I clicked it right, but welcome to the Midweek Midrange. We are still celebrating here in the Midweek Midrange. I'm joined by a handful of folks. I think this might be the most people had on the screen at one time, but that's all good. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with the person I think is celebrating. I'll say least, but not because I don't think you didn't enjoy the finals. Jamal, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. And yes, I am celebrating because it was a better finals than I anticipated.
Exactly. And then I'm going to jump to Jeremy. Jeremy's joining us. Jeremy was Bucks and 6 all finals. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Just doing it for all my buddies in Wisconsin, particularly one in Milwaukee. Got my Quick Trip shirt on. Got my old Milwaukee. I'm ready to party.
Ready to party with old Milwaukee. Speaking of old Milwaukee, the youngest member of the crew, I believe, is here to join us. And this is a real Bucks fan, not just a Buckeyes fan. How are we doing, JD?
Oh, I'm easily doing the best out of anyone here. And it's not that you guys are doing bad. It's just cloud nine, man. Giannis defender for years, and it's paid off. Oh, on cloud nine. So
he's been vindicated.
Yep. Hey, Mid too. Even though he didn't play great last night, it's been a tough road at times. It's not been easy being team captain of the defending Giannis and the Bucks and just patience guy. But today, man, all worth it.
All right, so I kind of asked you this off pod when it was just you and me in the group, actually, if I'm being honest. But JD, walk us through. It is 9:00 Eastern. The game tipped off a little more than 24 hours ago. Walk us through the last 24 hours.
Oh man. Well, first of all, at 3:00, I'm like starting to get nervous, and I'm like, we have 6 hours. Like this is not good, because as excited as I was after Game 5, reality hit of like, yeah, we're in the driver's seat. This is awesome, but holy crap, man! If we lose Game 6, like they're the betting favorites. They get to go home. They like everything we earn could flip on us in a second. So there's a lot of pressure to win last night. Nervous all night. First quarter, obviously both teams started very tight. A little youth showed, I think, of the Suns. But both teams started pretty tight. First quarter, I'm feeling all right. Second quarter, I'm like, holy crap. Are we made for the moment? Like, Jrue Holiday, brother, I love you, but you gotta stop shooting. Like I'm freaking out, I'm screaming. I got a couple buddies over, one a big Bucks fan. But by the fourth quarter, man, and when the way Giannis was playing in the third, I'm like, I really think we're gonna do it. I think we're gonna do it tonight. Fourth quarter, just big time stuff. We'll get into it. Obviously, I want to let you guys all go into it, but just an absolute blast. Me and my one buddy, Milwaukee fans for life. We did the champagne bath in my backyard, pouring champagne on each other.
Sweet.
It was a lot of fun. And then this morning, moving a little slow, but didn't matter because feeling of winning a championship conquers everything, man. So watching, and the best part about it, watching everyone gush about your team on TV like I did all day. So, well, unbelievably happy.
I'm gonna go around the room after this too, but first I'll start with myself. I think about like times I've seen my teams win a championship. I'm a Houston sports guy that spent a lot of time growing up in Austin as well. The Astros in 2017 felt incredible when it happened. Obviously, this isn't a baseball podcast, but some stuff went down after. Then I go back to like the University of Texas. My parents met at University of Texas, and so we were Longhorns growing up. The Vince Young championship run, right? Like that was special. Cool. And that's like it. And so there was like the Astros, which feels kind of like hazy. I love the time when it happened. It's just in the hindsight, it's like,
right.
And then the Texas thing, I was a freshman in high school. Like I was pretty young. Frankly, kind of felt like we're going to win a lot of times. We didn't. And so I got to ask Jamal, is there like a memorable celebration of some championship from your teams in the past, or are you a glutton for punishment closer to myself?
No, so as a matter of fact, there was an actual recent one. So believe it or not, it was 2016. I'm serving in Korea for my year tour, and it was February time. So of course it's the Super Bowl. So it's the Broncos against the Panthers. So of course you already know I'm decked in my Broncos stuff because we haven't been in the Super Bowl since we won back to back in '98. So and to see the defensive performance that they put on that night against the MVP of the league in Cam Newton, I did not care who heard me from the next room over or the next couple floors over. I was screaming my lungs out because we had gotten close but hadn't gotten over the hump, and then to finally win it and to send Peyton Manning off into the sunset, that did it for me. Probably the second closest I would probably say would be the Colorado Rockies making the World Series in 2007 on that miracle run. So as a Colorado sports fan, there have been a lot of great moments, but I think those are the two I probably remember the most.
Yeah, you bring up the 90s and like the Elway years. I guess the Rockets did win 2 in 94, 95. I was 3 and 4 years old, so like, I didn't celebrate those. People in my house did, but I did not. Jeremy, do you have any fond championship type memories that can relate to what JD's talking about?
I have a memory of a non-memory. 2016 Cubs World Series. I blacked out in like the 7th inning, so that was a bummer. I saw John Lester was coming in for Kyle Hendricks, and I'm like, "What the fuck is happening?"
So such a good time that you don't know.
It would have just happened anyway. But that would have been the celebration, is blacking out. I'm sorry, but
I felt worse that night because I was on the opposite spectrum. I'm an Indians fan, so
oh, gross. So
Ohio,
like you, JD. It was like 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'm just like, I'm already just.
What do you do with yourself? Like, I'm more nervous that day.
You know what I started doing with myself? I started drinking. So I started a little early in the day.
Right.
But you don't remember after the 7th inning, so I don't know if that's really.
It might not be the strategy.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
It was bad. So I've watched it before. I've rewatched it by now. But so what happened was I didn't really feel like I was drinking that much, and then I just think it was like drinking from 3 to like 8 or 9 o'clock, and then my body was just so nervous. I think I just shut down. I just woke up on the floor. I'm like, I think we won. Because I just kind of remember some stuff. I'm like, it's like 4 a.m. and there's nobody here.
Probably would have remembered the whole thing if there wasn't that rain delay. That's what got you.
The rain delay.
That's that extra time.
That 12 minutes really messed with me.
But you probably don't win without that rain delay. Just
no, but hey, it shall be foretold. So as Bucks and 6.
Hey, I'm not shaming any champions today. Don't need that karma.
So that happened. That was great. That's about it then. I have seen Super Bowl runs from the Bears in 2006 and the 2011 the Bulls Heat. That was fun. Not fun at all, actually, but watching LeBron lose to the Mavs was a championship for me.
That was after what happened in the Eastern Conference. I was like, oh well, at least they lost the Mavs.
It was incredible.
We're going to jump into some hot tea, cold brew. Speaking of beverages from Jeremy, we're going to jump into hot tea, cold brew. A little bit different look at beverages. Hot tea, cold brew is brought to you by Yeti coolers, cups, and koozies. Yeti is the go-to shop for keeping things hot or cold, just like these NBA stories. Yeti is based out of Austin, Texas. Old Milwaukee would go great in a Yeti. Check out the links to our social media handles for all your insulated needs for tailgating, camping, and daily life. Yeti is built for the wild. So the first one is starting kind of on that other side of the championship. That it sounds like we've all, whether it's a conference championship or something, we all have been on the other side of this as well, right? And so our first hot tea cold brew looks at the Phoenix Suns. Suns were up 2-0 after, I don't want to say improbable finals run, but on the way to the finals, you had Chris Paul hurt his shoulder, get COVID, and then also hurt his hand. Devin Booker broke his face at some point. Like we just forgot about that. And Dario Saric obviously had a pretty severe knee injury along the way. And the Suns still got to the finals, still got up 2-0. And frankly, had home court advantage, as JD pointed out, had they got into a game 7. Hot tea, cold brew. Let's start with Jeremy and work our way back around the circle here. The Phoenix Suns choked this finals away.
Absolutely not. That is cold brew, 100%. I was actually going to bring this almost direct. I almost rehearsed this one coming in. The Phoenix Suns played well enough in games 4 and 5 and 6 to win an NBA championship, and they ran into a god. They
A Greek god.
They played well enough to win the NBA Finals, and they lost because they ran into an all-time great performance that just broke their souls. It absolutely shattered their souls. There's nothing they could have done about it. They got an all-time block, an all-time alley-oop, but on the same night as back-to-back 40-point Devin Booker nights. Maybe Chris Paul could have had a better game 4, maybe even a game 6. That's all up to debate later, but have you ever seen a team play that well? What was the stats in game 5? Anybody just know off the top of their head those percentages of the Suns? And then they just
shot well.
50% from the field, like 68% from 3, 90% from the line, 10 of 11, I think it was, and they lost because Giannis is an overwhelming force of nature that they just could not overcome, and I don't know how you can blame anybody on the Suns for being able to not stop him.
Yeah, just to reiterate those stats in the incredible Game 5, Phoenix did shoot 68% from 3 and 55% from the field as a whole. I've got thoughts on that too, but I want to hear the rest of y'all. Jamal, did the Phoenix Suns choke this finals away?
Cold T, no. I mean, as Jeremy said, the Phoenix Suns just ran into one of the all-time greatest performances in a debut finals. Like, it's rare we get to see a performance like this. Because I listened on ESPN, I think last night and I think earlier today, players performing in their debut finals. He is in conversations with Rick Barry and Allen Iverson. That is rarefied air. And for the Suns, I mean, come on, the front line besides maybe Aiden, like, really did not have an answer for him. The injuries to Shard didn't really help much, but it didn't matter who was guarding him. It was Ayton, go right around him. Crowder, overpower him. Frank Kaminsky, come on now. Like, just like
Break the Tank was okay.
Tank played good last night.
I'll give him credit. He played well in Game 6, but it's just like Giannis was just on this mission that he was just not going to be denied, and he was not going to let anybody get in his way. So, do I blame Phoenix for blowing this series? No, because they just caught the wrong guy. They just caught the wrong guy at the wrong time. So,
quick side note on Frank. Did anybody notice the little bit of rumblings when he had that dunk and that shot that he made? They're like, oh, Wisconsin fans like, oh, Frank.
Like, that was like, that's our guy.
Look out, Frank. I don't know.
But then they remember the national championship. They're like, nah.
Little rumblings like that.
Interesting. All right, JD, I'm interested to hear your take here because obviously you have your fandom tied to this, and I think that's an important perspective to have here. Did the Phoenix Suns choke this finals away?
Choked it away is a little harsh, so I'll say no. I'll say cold brew. I will say they had opportunities. I think it's very fair to say that they probably choked Game 4 away, if we're being honest.
Not probably, they did.
Yeah, to say they choked away the whole series it would take away from like what Giannis did and the adjustments made, which we'll get into, and things like that. That the Bucks, like Giannis, I mean, 2 40-point performances, 50-point performance in a shutout game. I mean, that's greatness. That's like, you don't blame. Even though the Warriors kind of blew it, it's people talk about this series as like LeBron came back from 3-1, stuff like that. So, no, I don't think they choked it away. Now, I do think you catch a little bit of a break when guys like Booker just didn't play well last night. But I think for the opportunities they had to blow it, you have to go to like a Game 5 where it's like both teams played at their peak and the Bucks won. So they were probably the better team. So, no, I don't think they choked away the finals, but they did choke away certain opportunities that would have changed the series. And I think Chris Paul played pretty poorly, which I wasn't expecting all the way through. So,
well, and you kind of stole my thunder. I think it's not that they choked the series, but I'm like you. They had an opportunity in Game 4 to go up 3-1. And you talk about LeBron and 2016. You talk about the heroism there is no one does the 3-1 thing, and no one's come back from that in the finals until LeBron. And so taking that lead would have been pretty commanding. I hesitate to use the phrase choke because I also think that that takes away from what Milwaukee did, right? That makes it about what Phoenix did and did not do, and not about what Milwaukee did. And we talked about the threes, the high percentage they shot in Game 6, but they were a team that's shooting, 20 plus threes a game on great ball movement, and they shot a great percentage from three. But the Suns in Game 6, where did it go? I just had this pulled up. The Suns in Game 6 shot considerably less times from three. The Suns in Game 5 shot considerably less times from three. They shot great percentages. Like when they shot them, they were open and they went in. However, the Bucks did a good job of running them off the line, which I thought was fantastic. Right,
and a couple of like the choke moments. Like, yeah, Chris Paul didn't play well, but like, man, like a lot of that is Jrue Holiday. Like, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that they did to like quote unquote choke it away, the turnovers, the Devin Booker doesn't play well in Game 6. It's like, but that like is by design. Like that was because the Bucks. It's not like they had wide open shots and just weren't hitting them. I mean, Jrue Holiday, what a workhorse! Like, it just made it hard on everyone the whole series. Anybody who he had to guard.
Can you say, throwing it back to like mid 90s basketball, when you're picking up people full court and making them work just to bring the ball? Because what that does, like it lessens the shot clock. You're making other people have to bring up the ball, whether it's Bridges, Crowder, or sometimes even Booker himself. And then what do you get? You're late getting into your offense. You get forced turnovers. And look, Jrue Holiday's offense, that can be debatable. I've said that throughout the series. But you cannot replace what that man did defensively and also getting the Bucks into their own offense.
And this is kind of segueing me into the next one, and so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next hot tea cold brew, because this is all about the finals. This is a very flowing conversation. But JD, I imagine in the crew, as a fan, you've watched this team the closest, and this gets kind of at what my biggest criticism the last 3 or 4 years of this team has been. The last 3 or 4 years, I'd have said mid-series, Mike Budenholzer has trouble making adjustments, and not that he didn't start the series off well. But it's a boxing match, and once someone throws a jab, you've got to counter. And I would say against like Miami, he had trouble countering a year ago, right? And against Toronto 2 years ago, he had trouble countering and those kinds of things. However, this time, I weirdly wonder if you would say the same. So hot tea, cold brew, Budenholzer made good adjustments in this series. Or was it just Giannis getting 50 and going full Greek God mode?
So first of all, Parker, I'm on that bandwagon. I had been on that bandwagon of, Bud has frustrated me a lot in the last couple of years, especially in the playoffs. In fact, the like rumblings of the hot seat this year, it's weird to say now that he won the championship, and this will go into me answering the question. I was kind of like, Bud's got to do something, or we got to change something up. Like, I was kind of on that bandwagon. That being said, learn from his mistakes, because yes, he did make good adjustments finally in the playoffs in a big time series. We talked about it. I don't remember if that was the one without Parker or not, but we talked about it a couple weeks ago after Game 1, maybe. I think Parker was there actually, but after Game 1, it's very clear that Mike Budenholzer is a big midweek midrange listener, because he followed our advice to a T. He, I think we talked about it. I really wanted Jrue Holiday to guard Chris Paul. Did that, and Giannis play the 5 and stop that pick and roll action that Lopez is not usually great at. And he made those adjustments, and they were the defensive adjustments as much as Greek God mode and all that. Like we said, even with Greek God mode, the Suns had their opportunities. It was the defensive adjustments that Bud made, which seemed obvious, but he made them at least. Like there were some adjustments I think seemed obvious on the other side that they didn't make. So I really do believe he made the proper adjustments. Giannis playing the 5 and taking that pick and roll with Booker and Ayton just kind of out of their game. Like that wasn't even a part of the series, and it was a part of the every series to that point. So yeah, I think he made great adjustments, and man, he's our championship coach now, and hopefully going forward, he's learned. Because everything you said was fair, and I was saying the same things maybe a little more angrily the last couple of years. But.
He's untouchable now. He's got a ring. And I joke. He has a little bit more breathing room if he was on the hot seat earlier. Jamal, what do you think? Hot tea, cold brew. Budenholzer made good adjustments.
Hot tea, he did, because I think he finally realized that with the pieces that he had, and I think what really took it away from the past 2 years before this season, like he needed to use Middleton and Giannis a little bit differently, especially in the pick and roll, because now what you can do when you have Middleton handling the ball a little bit more, now Giannis doesn't have to handle it as much, and now he can do what he does best, roll to the rim, set a good pick, and then either it's a lob over the top or a good paint catch, seal, and do whatever he does. That was a big adjustment. He also let Holiday run the point a little bit more, so Giannis, once again, does not have to do most of the ball handling, because I think that was what was killing the Bucks the last 2 years. And now that I've always said you need multiple ball handlers on your team, because it will take the pressure off your main guy when you have other guys who can do so. But I think the biggest adjustment he did was definitely having Holiday switch on to Chris Paul, because as we saw after, I think, game one, after Paul had that great game one, game two forward, you saw how much more difficult it was for him to get into the flow of the offense, because Holiday literally from the tip was picking him up full court. And you saw how much of a difference that was. So, and then I had to give a lot of credit to as a matter of fact, and he even picked up Booker in the same way. And I thought a key play in game 5 that I think people really didn't realize, and I really wanted to pay attention to, it was in probably midway through the third quarter. Holiday had picked up Booker around half court. The man ended up picking his pocket and then busted a 3 in his eye. I thought that was a big play in the game. And I'm like, Holiday may have just stole that man's soul right there.
And Booker was a little rattled too, because yeah. No, that was a big time. That was a big time momentum switch in that game. I agree.
Jeremy, talk to me. Hot tea, cold brew. Budenholzer actually made good adjustments this series.
Just to be, I guess, a little contrarian, I'll go cold brew, just because I don't want to just be adjustments guy. He made the right adjustments. He did this thing. He did that thing differently. He kind of stuck to the same typical game plan. What I think he did was make really good in-game moves. He was just a good game manager finally. He found his rotation. He stuck with his rotation. He was just a very solid head coach for once. It felt like he was doing his duties as a head coach, not just, we're going to switch this, we're going to completely overhaul this. He didn't completely 100% overreact to any of the things they were sort of failing at. It wasn't, we're going to make this complete defensive switch. We're going from completely, or the drop coverage to, we're switching everything. He mixed in a few things throughout the game. He found that about after 2 games, probably a few games into the series, it was, we're bigger than these guys. We kind of need to play bully ball. And I swear to God, in one of these games, I saw a lineup of Giannis, PJ Tucker, Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, and Jrue Holiday. I don't think it lasted long, but it was just, we're going big and you can't beat us. And he got rid of Bryn Forbes for the rotation. Unfortunately, love me some Bryn Forbes, but the man could not hang. Gave Jeff Teague 8 minutes hard cap 8 minutes. Look, man, you need to go out there and tell somebody for 8 minutes and you are out of here. They were always bad 8 minutes. But,
well, Jeff Teague's minutes were interesting. I think I'm going to call it, like, in the South we have iced tea. This is like lukewarm. Like, it's not cold. There are a couple of things Bud did that it's like he did change mid-series that he probably didn't do before. I would say he was more experimental in lineups. You mentioned the big lineup. And in a single substitution.
He kind of took Brooks' minutes down and let him just sort of work with these bigger lineups. Sure he didn't just like ride Brook the whole time, because he would have just been eaten alive in some of these pick and rolls, and he used them when he had to. So, yeah, I guess my thing is he wasn't just major switches, adjustments guy, but he just did the minor things from game to game and just in game. He was very poised, Mike Budenholzer, and he played his players. He just 7-man rotation. Play your guys 40 minutes.
Well, and so there's that piece too, right? Like at some point, he just kind of had the better roster when starters versus starters happened. I did like lineup flexibility a little bit out of him, so that's why I sit on the lukewarm side. I also think that stuff like running guys off the 3-point line for less 3-point attempts, I'm thinking was probably intentional. He does have guys that go balls to walls on defense, whether it's Jrue or Giannis or PJ or whomever, Khris even, right? Like whomever that is. And so that might just have been their MO, but that was impressive to me. I also think it was like interesting to see. He was totally fine if Jrue Holiday had a really good offensive game 5, but he was like, Drew's going to spend 98% of his energy playing defense. And if he goes 1 for 11, he's still going to play 44 minutes. We're not going to change that up.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking. He powered his guys. It may not have been Mike Budenholzer saying in some of these games, Jrue, okay, you're going on to Devin Booker now. You're going to pick up Chris Paul full court. He just said, Jrue, whatever you think is what's needed at this time. Just like Devin Booker's made a couple of shots, go on, get his ass. And then
that's what he did.
He just empowered his guys. He trusted his guys to do what they had to do, and that's what a finals champion can do. Their players on the court are able to make the decisions that the coach would make themselves without the coach having to tell them to. They felt, even though some of those guys had only been there for a year, they felt like a very cohesive unit, like they played together for a few years. I know a lot of the Bucks players had, and they've been through these trials and tribulations together, but some of these new guys, they fit right in.
Well, and so of their top 7 rotation, and I say 7 because Middleton, Jrue, Giannis, PJ, Pat, Connaughton, Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, their top 7 rotation played 100 or more minutes. The next highest, the 8th man, played 56 minutes. So he played his guys, right?
Jeff T, 8 a game.
Yeah, exactly. of those 7 guys, again, about half of them are new, but the other 4 I really have been this core in Milwaukee for a while, right? My next hot tea cold brew question kind of carries off of that, and I'll start with Jamal because I want to make sure I give everyone a chance to start one. Hot tea cold brew, Jamal. Giannis's finals performance, we've hinted at it several times, but it was immaculate. Giannis's finals performance puts to rest the idea of the bag question.
Yes, I think it does. I mean, we've been sitting here waiting for the last couple of years, like, when is Giannis going to take that next step? And I always believe that, okay, maybe if it's a jump shot or some improved free throw shooting, that would be his next step. No, so that really necessarily was not the case. I think you saw even more effort, you saw even more intensity, and you just saw Giannis really say, like, hey, this is my advantage, and no one on this court is going to stop me. So I'm going to go to it until they do make an adjustment. So I think this finals really proved that no matter what you do, no matter who you put in front of me, I'm going right through them. And I'll actually put in a hot take here. The main person who I think really needs to listen to Giannis after it's all said and done, it needs to be Ben Simmons right now, because both are not good free throw shooters, but that did not stop Giannis from attacking the basket, from shooting the ball, or just being aggressive. And so that really, if that does not resonate with Ben Simmons, I don't know what will at this point.
JD, same thing. I'll throw it to you. Hot tea, cold brew. Giannis's finals performance, and I'm sure you've been tired of this question as a fan, puts to rest this idea of he has no bag.
Okay, so I was going to ask, I was probably really lame for a basketball guy, but by no bag, like I was a little confused by the question. Like by bag, you mean like?
Oh, it's this
like a bag of tricks.
Go to
okay. All right. That's what I thought you meant.
Toolkit, okay, it's been a conversation around it for a couple years now.
Puts his head down. That's all he's got is his physicality. Yeah.
Right. The Harden quote was he just runs and dunks or whatever the thing. Right.
Yep. Because he's got no skill. Harden, what are you doing today? Sorry.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Of course. Not only he scored. Because that was the big thing too, right? It's like, it gets in the playoffs, and when the defense gets more physical, he can't just put his head down. Half-court offense, he's a liability. Like I've heard it all. So, not only did, of course, he was physical, he was able to score down low. He was able to just blow by and drop shoulders and get boards and do stuff like that. But I mean, when you saw him get down low, like he had a bag, like he had moves. He had that little step back mid-range jump shot, like
his
in
spin
Ayton's eye. Right. DeAndre Ayton was scared of him last night. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He didn't want to chest him up every single time Ayton's doing this with his shoulder, if you're visual there. But, Giannis, he obviously showed he can score in a multitude of ways. Not just that, everything he brings to the table. I mean, from defense to he's a really good passer. He made them respect him in the paint, and that's the Bucks. Like, that's been their thing. The Giannis goes to the paint and then they kick out threes. But Giannis made them respect it on a new level. The little baby hooks, the step backs. He even made a three last night. And then for a guy that, like, this just goes to, like, well, you love Giannis. I mean, what's his biggest knock is his free throws. What does he do? It's money game, baby. It's money game. What does he go? 17 for 18.
19.
Or 19. Yeah, 17 and 19. Like,
Incredible.
What do I do bad? Oh, that's what I did best in the biggest moment. So, yeah, it's a dumb question. See you later. Giannis has got a big old bag.
How about that?
Harden.
Jeremy, hot take cold brew. The Giannis finals performance puts a big old bag. I don't know what. Anyway, puts to rest this idea of a bag.
Absolutely, 100% hot tea. As one of my good friends, big-time Milwaukee Bucks fan, would say after the game all over Twitter, no bag Twitter is in shambles by this man. They are in shambles. They were hot in the Brooklyn series. They couldn't stop clamoring over the charges. I couldn't stop bitching about the charges. The charges, the blocks, all he could do is barrel head first down to the basket. It was very annoying to watch. But once it feels like he grew in literally just 12 games in 2 series. He figured out how to counter things. He started to hit that pull up, and it really felt. Did anybody else feel like he really started to work that post game? It wasn't too much of
that's part of Bud too, by the way.
It was
getting that, not having him bring up the ball and him starting in the post when Ayton wanted nothing to do with him. Good move. Good move.
It was. I'm getting the ball down here. I'm gonna find a guy either in the corner. If I see the double, I know when to pass out. He got very good at kicking out when he had to. He was very smart at reading the double. He had the spin move. He had some of the counters. He could just overpower you and dunk over you. And God, I'm so glad you brought up the Ayton thing. I don't want to pile on Ayton because he had a fantastic playoffs. He was the talk of the town up until the conference finals. But the youth really showed. He was shook as shook can be. Did you guys see him bite in Game 6? Bite on that Giannis 3-point pump fake 15 feet away from him. He was on the block and he jumped, and then Giannis drove by him.
When I saw that, I'm like, Ayton's in trouble.
I swear to God, I was like, oh my God, DeAndre Ayton is done. He is cooked mentally. Like, what is happening to this guy?
Another thing of Giannis too, that it's obviously he's grown. He's always been good, but he's obviously gotten better. This series, especially, and even these playoffs, but mainly this series, he was so patient. Like, I feel like in the past, it's like, I have to get to the rim. I have to get to the rim. He was fine. Like, in the second quarter, he's like, I took 3 shots. I made 2 of them. Like, if it's not there, I'll kick. If it, he didn't feel the need. He let it kind of come to him. And then he has a lot in this series. He had a monster quarter that came from great shooting nights, because before then, he's like, I'm not just shooting to shoot. To where before he's like, I'm the superstar. I have to shoot, It's
like what everybody says when, like, the superstar finally starts to figure it out. The game slowed down for him. Right. It was, I don't need to do all of this in 3 minutes. I've got a whole quarter. I can get a putback rebound. That's a point. I can get it on the fast break. That's an and one. That's 3 points. Well, maybe 2.5.
Which is tough to do in a Game 6 where, like, everything I do, like, I just want to make the crowd explode.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Jrue Holiday, every step back. He's like, this would be sweet if I make it.
Can we just really quick talk about the first 6 minutes of this game? Did anybody else feel like it was a Game 7? Like, whoever lost was gonna. It was a rock fight of rock.
It was it was that.
That's the secret sauce in Game 7s, right? Game 7s typically play that tight the whole time, and this one felt like, for like the first quarter, I felt like it was going to be like that all night. I
didn't think it was going to be that the whole night. I'm like, somebody has to call a timeout at this 7-minute mark. Yeah. Please, just get these guys some water and settle the F down.
Well, and at first it was Milwaukee, and then it looked like they're going to run away with it, right? And then Phoenix had a great second quarter once they all calmed down, and it really made for a great second half of basketball after that. I'm gonna go a little contrarian here, as opposed to I guess Jeremy was contrarian last one. I don't know that this puts to rest the no bag question, right? Giannis still is like a very, like, on paper, simple basketball player, right? He'll charge down. He's going to go like right to the cut. He's going to take the long step and it's either continue to the right. He's going to Euro back, or he's going to spin. Like, he's got like 3 moves. I think what this showed really is not that Giannis doesn't have the bag or whatever. It's that it doesn't really matter, right? Like, Shaq O'Neal also had no bag. Like, they like guess what?
No one was Shaq's size, though.
Yeah, that dude has 4 rings. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Timmy Duncan was Mr. Big Fundamental. Had a couple of things he did really well. Stop it, right? Like, at some point, I think the deal was, it's not that Giannis won this series by being himself, right? Giannis didn't win this series trying to shoot a bunch of threes. Like, he went like 1 for 2 last night in Game 6. He shot the one in the second quarter that would have like taken the lid off the stadium if he'd made it.
Yeah.
It didn't go in. And then he takes the one in the second half, right? Like, he didn't win this series trying to do a bunch of that. He did make free throws, right? That helped a lot. And truthfully, he did the 3 things he does really well. Like, that's all it took.
Yeah,
and
you know what? I'm with you. You convinced me. It makes a lot of sense. It's like what Charles Barkley said. You need 2 moves and you need 2 counters, and that's kind of it.
And it's
Especially
fun to think about, like, obviously the game is also simpler when you're a Giant.
Yes.
But there's no handicaps here. That's the way the game's played.
Right. I hate when that's used against him.
Just got
it's like
more sophisticated.
Kevin Durant and Dirk Nowitzki are big shooters, right? But, like, if they were 6 inches shorter, they don't have the same vision of the basket either, right? Like, they would probably still be as good open shooter, but, like, theoretically, they're not rising up over the defense in the same way.
Right.
Obviously, like, LeBron would be a great point guard at 6'2", but he's probably not LeBron at 6'2". Like, size is part of this game. Like,
right.
And y'all, you brought the whole thing stems from really this, like, argument he had with Harden, and there's this rivalry with Harden and whatnot. I am one of the guys that liked watching James Harden play. I think it's silly that, like, he's like 6'5" and change and like 230. Like, he also uses size to his advantage, right? Like, he also uses those broad shoulders, and he goes through arms, and he takes a buttload of contact. Like, players use that to their advantage all the time. I don't think this, like, taught me that Giannis has a bag or whatever. I just think it just shows, like, some players have, like, Kyrie Irving has all those handle things, and, cool. Some guys need that, some guys don't. Like, I
tell you what, you let Giannis get a really good post game, it's a wrap.
Oh, and, like, the truth is 3 years ago when he won his first MVP, right? You could have said if he spent 3 months with Hakeem Olajuwon in the post, right? Like, the deal has just been he's been this downhill thing. The other thing I heard that I think is interesting is it was a take. It's not like facts, but, like, if you think about it, like, weirdly, limiting his movement with being injured might have kind of helped. Like, he was like, right? Like, I'm not going to do too much here.
That's definitely part of the game plan early in the series.
Right. Like, I'm going to do what I'm comfortable with. Right. And then that got him 40, and he's like, why change?
I was going to say, I don't think he dropped the ball up.
That chase down block he had on Bridges in Game 1 told me all I needed to know.
Oh, his
body he wanted to block every shot, too. Like, he was...
For real.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Bridges don't want to see him no more. He's in that man's nightmares.
Right.
Have you seen more want to in a game or in a finals game than that Game 6? It was just, I'm going to get 3 goaltends, but I'm going to block everything.
Every second, man. He goes hard in every second.
That's what I want.
And that's also a skill. Like, we need to treat that like it's a skill.
Well, and before we move on, I do want to just add on to the, like, because I'm obviously on your side of things where, like, professional sports, and we're going to be like, that guy's a physical freak. That's not fair. Like, what are you talking about? Somebody today said there's 50 people taller than Giannis in the league. Like, he's not the tallest guy in the league. And when he got in the league, he was Kevin Durant skinny. So what did he do? He put time into the gym. He did that. You know what I mean? Hey, Kevin Durant, you go put it on, man.
he found out what a smoothie is and drank a lot of them.
Anybody see his Chick-fil-A order today?
Oh,
on
yeah.
IG Live.
Oh my
He
goodness.
We're drinking
to order 50 nuggets.
We're drinking Sprite and lemonade all week in my house. That's it.
Sprite and lemonade, no
That's it.
ice.
That's it.
50-piece McNugget, not 51, not 52. I need a 50-piece nugget.
Interacting
He
with
was
fans.
genius
What a
for
guy,
that.
man. What a guy.
He is just incredible. He's just
That's it. I'm sending him a
human
fruit
being.
basket. I'm going to send him a fruit basket.
You
Okay,
know
so-
what? They might as well put his jersey number up where Lou Alcindor and Oscar Robertson are right now. They better start doing it.
You're goddamn
He's already
right
the
we
best
should.
buck.
I don't want to pile on other teams. It's supposed to be a celebration of the Bucks, but I posed this question today just because
Let's
of how
have
much
fun.
fun is going on today. Like, can you just? I mean, you're a Harden guy, Parker, of course, but like, could you imagine if the Nets won to like the finals? Like, what today would have been like? I just would have been like, that's. I mean, sure. I think it would have been a lot cooler if they beat a team like the Lakers in the finals,
Right.
but if they just like beat the Suns and like, I mean, congratulations, you guys.
Who they beat probably changes that. And like,
I
if
would have
Durant-
liked the Nets if they beat like the Lakers and LeBron. That
Well,
would have
and-
been a cool Kevin Durant moment, but this would have
If
just
Dur-
been.
Yeah, if
Okay.
Durant had 65 or something, like just nuts, like it'd be, yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that there's a unique, like, we all like, oh man, that's so cool for Milwaukee.
If either one of these teams won, it just feels like a celebration. It would have just been another like finals
Good for
champion.
basketball.
It
Yeah.
was
So
really good
if-
today.
if we look at, so like Giannis, we talked about, bag and no bag, etc. Devin Booker is a man with many tricks in his, in his bag. He's got a lot of tools in the toolkit. He is young. He had 40 points twice in this final series. He lost both games. And frankly, whenever Jrue switched over to guard Chris Paul, it was evident that Booker was about to get a bunch of points, right? He kills drop coverage because of his mid-range game. He's a lethal three-point shooter. He's got a lot of good things going on. And he's just, 24 years old himself. I think that we look at finals, typically guys that win the NBA finals. Giannis is actually on the younger side of guys to win the finals MVP. It's typically guys like in their later 20s, early 30s that have been through some trials and tribulations, especially when you factor like until the one and done or until the prep to pro generation. Those guys that have been a few years in college too. So Booker theoretically is really on the early end of this. My question to you all, and I'm going to start with Jeremy and go the other way this time. Jeremy, hot tea, cold brew. Devin Booker would be back to the NBA Finals in the next 5 years.
Interesting.
Oh man, it's a tough one. I'm gonna go cold brew. Not too much to that. It all depends on how Chris Paul comes back and how much better can he get, because this Suns team did really feel like a bit of a Cinderella run. You really have to get more and more progression from DeAndre Ayton. You need more and more out of Mikal Bridges. You need to continue to treat this team as an owner, as a GM, James Jones, as a finals contender. You need to, like, are they going to continuously, are they going to keep pushing for that? Are they going to try to rework the roster to get back? I'd imagine so. That seems like a dumb question, but you never know what happens. Devin Booker has done exactly what he's done his whole career, I think. He was incredibly good. He can score 40 almost at the drop of a hat, it seems like. But sometimes it still feels like he can play outside of himself and not play the full game of, I'm going to get everybody involved. I'm going to do the Giannis thing, like the game slows down. I'm going to get mine when I need to. Still feels like he's pushing at times just to get points because he kind of doesn't know any better just yet. I don't know. I don't have too much of a view for the Suns in the future, because this is what we want to do, right? Every time a team makes it to the finals, whether they win or not, well, they're going to be back. Don't worry, they're going to be back. Like, are they going to be back? There's just some teams in the West that are still like, I will not do it. I will not do it. I will not do the injuries help them get to the finals thing, even though it's like partially true, but they're just not going to get that kind of path to the finals. I still think they could have maybe beat the Lakers with Anthony Davis. They could have maybe still beat the Nuggets with Jamal Murray, but you just never know. Like when they play one of those teams before the finals that is incredibly healthy, with Chris Paul only getting older. I mean, I got to start with Chris Paul. He has done amazing things for those guys, and like for the long term. This isn't just a 1 year thing. DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, they're all already Cam Johnson, they're all better off in the future for having Chris Paul on their team. But I don't know. That's really tough. It just feels like this was a dream team for the Suns, and I'm not sure if they do get back. If they do, it's going to be because Devin Booker was incredible and might have been like an MVP candidate.
Jamal, talk to me. Hot tea, cold brew. Will Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns, or just Devin Booker, will Devin Booker be back to the NBA Finals in the next 5 years?
I'm gonna go with Jeremy. It's very tough because there are a lot of factors you got to go through. First things first, is Chris Paul. Is he going to pick up that $44 million option to stay with Phoenix? I mean, come on. Who in their right mind is going to drop $44 million? I mean,
only a guy really confident he's getting 45, and I don't know if he's getting 40, right? Like, that's the only guy.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
he wants to go play with his buddy Bron.
You know what? Don't start that. So, it's tough for me because I was torn throughout the series because on one half I wanted Chris Paul to win because look, how many more chances does a 36-year-old get to get to the finals at this point? Like it's rare. And then Giannis, for the continued slander that he's had and the failures that he's had, and here in the final get it done, like happy for him. So there's that front. Of course, as Jeremy said, like look, the young players for Phoenix, they gained a lot of valuable experience that I think people will really overlook. Not just DeAndre Ayton. Booker, he needs to take that next step and be able to become more than just a scorer, but an ultimate playmaker. I think that's the next step for him. I think the one thing that people overlook throughout this series, I think Monty Williams made a big mistake in not playing Cam Johnson more, because I think in the early parts of the series, he was really giving the Suns like that extra boost that if it wasn't being provided by Crowder or Bridges, he was there to provide that. And then, of course, you have all these other teams in the West who either are trying to get back healthy or really just itching to get back to the next season. And, Coach, you to this point, you still cannot count out LeBron at this point. I've done it before. I said I'd never do it again. So I'm going to just leave that alone. I'm telling you right now, Luka Doncic in Dallas, they are coming. They are coming. Of course, I'm going to say right now, I'm a homer, but it's all going to depend on Jamal Murray's injury. If he can get back before the All-Star break next year, the Nuggets' success is really going to depend on if he can come back even a fraction of what he was in the bubble. I don't know what's going to happen with Portland because the Dame Lillard situation. Who knows how that's going to end up? Utah, I'm hearing rumors or rumblings about Donovan Mitchell if he wants to stay there long term, and Utah may have to think about something about their own future. So there's a lot of moving parts, not just for Phoenix, but for the other teams out west that hopefully will have more answers than questions come this offseason.
JD, obviously this is the opposite side of the finals from where your fandom fell, but you had to admire what Devin Booker was doing to some extent. Hot tea, cold brew, Devin Booker will be back in the NBA Finals in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I rooted for the Suns until the finals. Like, I enjoyed their run through the West. I really did, and I don't dislike the Suns. In the heat of the moment, I'm calling them everything under the book. But afterwards, now that we beat them, they're cool. They're fine. No, yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit of the opposite spectrum. Man, 5 years in the NBA, it could look entirely different.
Like that,
right? Like the NBA is a team that promotes, changing and going to different places and everything like that. So I'm going to go hot tea in the fact that 5 years is a long time. I'm not even looking at the Chris Paul stuff. I think it would even probably be towards the end of that 5 years. Main reason, because 5 years, like I think LeBron showed his age a little bit this year. Obviously, like you said, Jamal, I'm never going to write off LeBron James because I'm never going to be that person who everyone laughs at when he's back. I think 5 years, like, I think it's safe to say, like, LeBron will at least not be LeBron that we know it now, and the Lakers won't be as much of a threat. It doesn't feel like that thing's working for the Clippers right now. So I think in 5 years, it's safe to say that team at least looks significantly different. Maybe Kawhi's still there, but I just don't see the Paul George being there long term or anything like that. I'm going to say yes on the fact that I believe in Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker, this was a learning experience. This was a very good learning experience because as good as he was silent in some big moments. But man, like game 4, obviously before the foul trouble and stuff like that, he had me shook to my core. Like I'm sure, like similar to how Giannis had them last night. Like every time he touched the ball, I'm like, he's going to score. Like I don't even like triple team him, whatever. Like if he gets that little shot in the key that he likes, that little step back, it doesn't matter. You could have that Pat Connaughton like almost touch the ball once. Like if he gets his release, it's over. So I really do believe in Booker, and I think after this run, if they can kind of keep that young core, similar to, as weird as it sounds, similar to kind of what Milwaukee has done. And as he gets a little older, I could see Phoenix being a decent free agency destination for some of those key players that they might have to pick up. Yeah, the NBA changes so much. So like this is one of those, like it could be like a duh, like how is he not, or like of course not in 2 years based on 1 or 2 big moves. But yeah, I'll go hot tea because I believe in Devin Booker, and it seems like people like him. Seems like people like playing with him. I could see him getting some decent free agents there, and maybe him and Ayton can have their finals moment sometime in the next 5 years. But I do think it'll be closer to that 5-year mark than like the next 2. And we're just talking getting there. That doesn't mean winning it. So
yeah, and I think the other thing that's interesting here, and I'm kind of in the I'm on the lukewarm side here again. I don't mean to like play the middle every time. I think it's interesting to point out that like Chris Paul's player option next year has not been signed. So theoretically he could hit free agency and strive for more. I think the interesting thing in following Chris Paul, and I don't mean to take everything back to Houston, but when he was in Houston is it seemed like a done deal that he's going to take the most money possible because as president of the Players Association, his big fight is always players need to make more money, not billionaires, right? And so like it's unlikely that he takes a pay cut. So I don't see him decline the option unless he can go somewhere else and make more money, or unless like he thinks he can go join a team with a better chance. It's hard to imagine a team with a better chance besides a team that just got the finals, but that's a long story, right? I think the other thing that's interesting here is Devin Booker himself has 3 years left on this contract. And what I didn't even mean to insinuate in this, though, is the questions about the next 5, right? And so we've seen movement in the NBA. You know, obviously what Giannis just did in staying in one place, and that's special, and it's cool to see in a mid-sized market like Milwaukee. My Houston Rockets blew up because James Harden left. Oklahoma City Thunder blew up because Westbrook and Paul George and Durant wanted to leave, right? It's not crazy to think that like that could also be coming if Chris Paul dips for LA, or if Chris Paul just retires after next year or something, right? Chris Paul's not young. That Devin Booker look around and see, man, we got the finals at one time. I know I've got, right? Something could happen there. Again, that's 3 years from now. I think he's good enough. I think what we're seeing here is that having a 2 guard that can really score a lot of points is not all it takes. In the next 5 years, even if Chris Paul takes the player option, he's not a point guard at 41, right? Like they're going to have to replace him at some point, whether it's this offseason or sometime in the next 5 years. And so that all I think is as important here. But Booker showed stuff that he had playoff moments, whether it was against the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, or whether it was, against the Lakers once AD went down. They really turned that around a lot on him. He played really well in Chris Paul's absence. I hate to just say no, so I just kind of sit on the middle on that one. Speaking of player movement, looking at the next hot tea cold brew question, I think I started that with Jeremy, so I'm going to start with JD at the top because this strikes closer to your heart. This finals win makes the Jrue Holiday move and trade worth it. JD, what you think?
150% yes.
50,000%.
Yeah, they gave up a lot in the moment. It felt like a lot, but you won an NBA championship. Wasn't that the goal? I think that was the goal. I don't know. And you don't win that championship. This is a different team, and he's the biggest piece of what is different. And as great as Giannis was, like Jamal said, we got to put some respect on what Jrue Holiday. Without his defense, like Booker this could have been the finals of Booker, 45 points a game, like just doing stupid. He's the next Kobe. Like it could have been that. It really could have, because he's got that kind of talent. Chris Paul could have went off. 100%. You played it. You played to win a championship, and he was the missing piece. And it's similar to kind of when the Raptors took their year to go all in. When you're a smaller market team like this, and you don't have the super team, you have to go all in. And they told Giannis, if you stay, we're going to go all in on you and for you. And I think that you would rather have that. This doesn't happen with two, first round picks, even if they're decent. This doesn't happen with those guys instead of Jrue Holiday. So, definitely.
Are we all going to be consensus here? This might be the first consensus one of the night. We're all saying this is the correct. Like, yes, this was worth it.
Yes, I mean, come on, like Jrue Holiday. Once again, offense notwithstanding, the defense that he played is nothing that I've seen. Like, look, the defense he played on Chris Paul and Devin Booker kind of reminds me of Derek Harper when he was playing with the Knicks in '94 against Houston. The way he was picking up either Kenny Smith or Vernon Maxwell the entire series, and he made their lives hell. So look. It's a missing part of the game. I'm surprised more teams don't do it, especially when you got an explosive backcourt. Pick him up full court, make him work, especially against the shot clock in this now fast-paced NBA game that we're used to seeing. Like, make him use more time on the shot clock, and that's what Holiday did. And he made Chris Paul have to work a lot harder after game one.
Jeremy, you also agree with this. This is very simple, it feels like. I feel like we're all on the same page here.
Yes, this is very simple, and that's why I'm going to use this really quick time to mention to my friends who may be listening. I told them that they should tune in, and maybe they'll watch it later, but I told them I was going to put on for them in the Bucks. You make this trade because you have a chance to make the finals with this team that I feel, and the reason that I wanted the Bucks to win this championship in particular, I just felt the Suns were, other than Chris Paul, they were just the newer team on the block. They're young. It's not that big of a deal if they don't win. It's a bigger deal for Chris Paul if they don't win. If the Bucks don't win this finals, it's catastrophe today. It's the Giannis thing's done. Khris Middleton can't do it. This and that. You got Brook Lopez. What's he going to do? This was my ideal type of finals team as an NBA fan. This is like how I grew up. The special player that you drafted, the superstar who wants to stay there forever, waits and waits. He signs his max deal. The guy who, I swear to God, after the Heat series in the bubble, I wrote the hell off the face of the earth was Khris Middleton, because he was just ungodly pathetic in the Heat series, and I just felt it wasn't like take artist. I wasn't like, this guy can't ever do it in the big game. This guy can't do it. I love Khris Middleton. I wanted him to be that guy, and boy, howdy was he that guy in this finals. Did you guys see his clutch stats or like his clutch numbers?
Yeah, look no further than game 4.
Unbelievable. I love Khris Middleton with all my heart. He did it throughout the playoffs, not just the finals. He did it to the Nets whenever he had to. Jrue Holiday did it to the Nets whenever he had to. They both stepped up big in the Hawks series. Jrue Holiday has been the best defensive player, perimeter defensive player in the NBA for over 10 years. Do you guys realize that? Yeah. How long he's been the best perimeter defender? Andre Iguodala was asked in like 2014 or 15, something like that. Hey, who's the best perimeter defender in the NBA? He said, it's Jrue Holiday. He was picking up prime Derrick Rose 94 feet in 2011. Like, how has he been this good for this long? This is just my favorite type of finals team. It feels like it connects with the city in a way that other teams don't. And I'm just so happy for the Giannis fans, the Bucks fans, and Khris Middleton, people like myself. Guys, we are the midweek mid-range. The mid-range was alive in this final. Khris Middleton,
yes, it was.
And Devin Booker, they destroyed people in the mid-range. I can't gush enough about it's like how cool this Bucks team was. This just feels like an old school NBA type of NBA Finals champion, and that right there is for all my Bucks fans, friends. I hope they heard it or hear it eventually.
On their behalf, we say thank you.
I think the biggest thing about this Jrue Holiday trade, and they did a fairly similar deal in the PJ Tucker trade, although it wasn't quite as dramatic because, frankly, PJ Tucker is not in like the prime of his career in the same way that Jrue Holiday is. It clearly was like, yes, we will, if you want to call it overpay and the amount of pick capital or draft capital they gave up to pull in a Jrue Holiday, and they signed him to an extension this year, so he's not just like a 1-year rental kind of thing. But yes, they went and overpaid it, right? They paid what I heard Monty Jones call like the small market tax, right? Where it's like to get this guy, a guy like this, you got to pay him a little bit more because they don't get to live on South Beach, like incentivized coming there. And it paid off, right? Like, I don't think there's any doubt that they don't win this series with Eric Bledsoe. Simply put, Bledsoe is a fine defender, but that's the direct replacement, right? Like, they directly replaced him with Jrue Holiday. They also, what I really appreciated and what you don't see teams do, but I love seeing teams rewarded, kind of like Toronto did, is they went all in on the here and now, right? Brook Lopez, 33. They go out and get PJ Tucker, 36 years old. They go out and get Jrue Holiday, 31 years old. They know Khris Middleton turns 30 next month. Yes, Giannis is 26. But as far as building around him goes, said this is the moment. We're pushing all the chips in, and we'll see how it goes. People injured throughout the deal, whatever.
My boy
Bobby Portis, Bobby P.
Which you and Chris, 2 weeks ago, I shut down that Bobby Portis slander.
That's another thing that I can't
I wish
believe
Chris was on today. Chris hates
former
Bobby
Chicago Bull Bobby Portis.
That's right. Bull for life.
Boy.
Bobby Portis
love
famous
Bobby.
for breaking Nikola Mirotic's face.
Good.
But no, I think that the deal is when you go all in on the here and now and you get rewarded, right? I would argue that Miami went all in on the here and now a year ago and got to the finals when they went and got Jimmy Butler, right? And I look at like Toronto in 2019 went all in on the here and now for a 1-year rental of Kawhi Leonard, got a ring out of it, right? Like these things.
Super team are all in. Those are your options to win a championship. Like unless you can get the super team, which you probably can't in places like Milwaukee and Toronto, when it's that year, you got to go for it because it's only like.
And I don't mean to say that teams have gambled and it didn't pay off, right? Like it certainly has for some groups. It's just good to see that pay off because you want to see those mid-sized markets continue to make that gamble because otherwise
it's really good for the league.
They turn into glorified minor league teams the way the Clippers were for so many years, right? Where they're working and eventually those guys, the young guys, like they get to be 30, like Middleton's about to turn. They say, oh, we're not going to win it all. Time to see ya. And like then Middleton goes and wins a ring, right? Like that would have been the other scenario here. And so to see them gamble and it pay off in that way, even if they might have overpaid in the moment for it, I think is good for basketball. We're running really long because it's NBA Finals. The season's wrapped up, and so we're trying to wrap it up for it. The last hot tea cold brew I'm going to throw to Jamal. Whoa. Did I just lose you guys? Are we still here?
No, I'm still here.
I'm sorry. All right,
cool. My screen went dark for a second. I was like, oh, crap. All right. Hot tea, cold brew, Jamal. This is the question everyone said all playoffs it felt like, so why don't we wrap up the finals by talking about it again? These NBA finals will have an asterisk next to them. Hot tea, cold brew, Jamal.
I hate this question with a passion. Yeah, and y'all will know this. For as long as I will talk basketball, you can almost put I will say it's lukewarm for now because you can look throughout the history of the NBA and you can almost put an asterisk on almost every playoff season, whether you like it or not, whether it's fair or not, because you can go out and pick a year. I will say 99, lockout shortened season. The Spurs finally were able to get through. The Knicks, throughout all their injuries and stuff, they still got
an 8 seed and they made it to the finals in '99.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Without you.
without you midway through the East Finals against Indiana. But I also look at 2015. Would that final series between Cleveland and Golden State be different if Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love play? Who knows? There's just a lot that you can pick through in every season. Like I said, fair, unfair, and all that stuff. But this one, I'm not going to put an asterisk behind it because everybody had to deal with COVID. Almost everybody had to deal with injuries. The Bucks. To this day, I'm surprised Giannis actually even played this well throughout this series after I thought he nearly tore up his entire knee. Like he had better luck than Murray did. I'll tell you that. And then and I'll even throw in DiVincenzo. People don't think of him as a big player, but that's another key perimeter defender who they could have used in this series against Booker or CP3. So I'm not going to put an asterisk behind it. And once again, I enjoyed these playoffs. And I enjoyed these finals. So damn the asterisk, in my opinion. Damn it.
I think I know what JD's answer is going to be, so I'm going to go to Jeremy next. Jeremy, hot tea, cold brew. These NBA finals deserve an asterisk.
Cold brew. I don't do asterisk talk. We just whoever you play who's in front of you. You beat them, you beat them. That's how the NBA finals goes. That's how the NBA playoffs goes. Just like Jamal said, what I want to do is shout out, I don't even know the account. I want to do a quick shout out to an Instagram picture I saw. And I don't even make fun of them too much because I know they're all probably made by 15-year-olds, which is fine. That's just who's inhabiting Instagram NBA. But they did here's all the if we're going to do asterisks, here's all the asterisks from the last 10 finals or whatever. In 2014, it had the air conditioning incident. I'm like, that's not an incident. That was on purpose. 100%. I know it. I'm like, that wasn't a malfunction. We all know what happened. But yeah, I'm just not going to do that. I just think some of my friends, of course, the one who, owed me this delicious case of old Milwaukee Red beer, America's beer, as it says on the can.
And America's champion right now.
If the Kyrie and James Harden were healthy, they would have lost. Well, guess what? They weren't.
Well, guess what?
There you go.
They played 8 games together throughout the season. Shocker. They didn't play in the playoffs.
Sorry,
together.
They weren't.
JD, I know your take, but I got to ask you to keep it well-rounded. Hot tea, cold brew. These NBA finals deserve an asterisk.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. I need to go get my my winter jacket, my stocking cap, because this is the coldest brew of all time ever invented on the Midweek Midrange. No, I don't do asterisks. I didn't do asterisks last year for the Lakers. Everyone has to deal with it. Injuries are a part of the game. Like I said, it obviously stinks, but injuries in general have just gone up in the NBA. The commissioner made sure to say that because he didn't want to feel bad about it being a longer season or anything like that. But no, I mean, we built our team based on a well-rounded, deep roster. The Nets built their team on 3 superstars, where 2 have been injury prone in the playoffs. 1 has been injured in the playoffs in 3 separate teams in Kyrie. I like it. That's how you built your team, which is fine. If it's healthy, it works out. But don't say we're gambling on Jrue Holiday or this is a big gamble or we're going all in on this year, because we took our gambles and who we're building the roster to be. It's a part of what we did. You did it different. Giannis can't affect anything like that. There hasn't been an asterisk in a championship since the Astros. Sorry, unnecessary shot.
Damn.
But
This is a basketball podcast.
Easy.
But no, I don't do the asterisk thing. You could talk about it. It could be like a storyline. I think Jamal brought it up, or I don't remember. It might have been Jeremy. But the NBA finals with, if Kyrie and Kevin Love, it can be a storyline. That's fine. It can be Draymond Green shouldn't have got suspended. All that can be a storyline. But at the end of the day, these guys they handled what they can control, and they did to the best ability. Winning a championship is freaking hard, and they did
yes,
it.
it is.
So, go Bucks.
Yeah, I'm anti-asterisks across the board. One of the first episodes of my other show, F in Sports, that we ever did, the thesis was, because I'm an Astros guy, that the Astros needed asterisk on 2017. And I don't mean to push back on you because it's not a baseball podcast. But
I'm really not a baseball guy. I just felt like
but my thought there was like, well, like then are we going to asterisk like every Babe Ruth record because he only played white dudes? Like there are so many different asterisks you can put
the
on
Patriots with the Deflate
There's
Gate.
Deflate Gate. There's this. In basketball specifically, yes, there were a bunch of injuries this year.
Deflate Gate. Talk about a can of worms.
You had but in the 2020 you had the bubble season, which in the finals of the bubble season, which is its own weirdness, you also had Bam Adebayo get injured. You also had Goran Dragic get injured. I'm throwing asterisks at the Lakers.
Toronto.
2019, Toronto wins with Durant get the Achilles and Klay Thompson hurts his ACL in Game 6. 2018, I'm a Rockets fan. I'll tell you firsthand that we feel like Chris Paul's hammy holds up. We got a pretty good shot at that championship. 2017, the year the cap spike, the one All-Star on the available goes to the team that was in the finals the year before. Like, yes, cap spikes are weird and random. 2015, you talk about Kyrie down, talk about Kevin Love down. 2014, AC, those kinds of things.
The AC malfunction.
2013, that Ray Allen shot, like that feels fluky too. Like as great as a shot as it was, right?
Russell Westbrook going down that year.
Russell Westbrook went down earlier. That would have affected the Western champion, I guess. The 2012 lockout season, 2011.
Derrick Rose got hurt in 2012.
Derrick Rose gets hurt. There you go. Right, like these things keep on going.
And to ask you guys a question, I don't remember. Did Kevin Durant, the so-called best player in the world, play in that series for the Nets? Oh, he did. All right, cool.
That's all I'm saying. Is like,
right. I'm with you.
Do it to all of it. And so if you're not going to do it to all of it, I don't get
nothing major in the finals. Like it would have really sucked Game 3. Like if it's 2-0 and Booker goes out, like I'm still enjoying it either way, but like it wouldn't be as fun. Like I don't want it in a lot.
And truthfully, JD, and again, this is the last. We'll sit on this because you're a fan. I'm sure you feel like, yes, Kevin Durant's shoe is a size too big or whatever, right? But like you also feel like you would have almost rather beat the Nets at full strength too. Like that's not like you wanted to play.
Yeah. Would we have? I don't care. I'm sitting as a champion today.
Right. Like, yes, it would have been nice to be able to play that, but like that's not what you got. Anyway, so I think that was a common take of the entire playoffs throughout the whole thing because Anthony Davis goes out early or Steph Curry didn't have Klay Thompson or whatever. And it's just you can do it every year.
To like football too, but I think football had the most like major injuries of major stars this year, and like nobody's taking away like Tom Brady's Super Bowl. You know, not to go too far because I know we're a little late, but like it happens, man. It sucks. No one wants it to.
It happens a lot. Our next segment is the long two because again, this is the midweek mid range, so we're going to look at long twos, and we're going to move on because here's what comes next after the NBA Finals this year. We're jumping right into the Olympics. Like open ceremonies are Friday. Like, as weird as that is to say, the NBA Finals wrapped up on Tuesday. 3 different people from the game on Tuesday night are playing for Team USA in Olympics with the opening ceremonies on Friday. Really, really weird. I hope that Giannis has lots of nuggets and recovery and Sprite and lemonade between now and Greece's first game. What I'm looking at is a long two. I want to hear 2 things from each of you that you're paying attention to and looking at Team USA. I guess you could do men's or women's basketball. Team USA heading into Tokyo. Let's start with Jeremy.
All right, cool. I actually had 2 things. Number 1 is, so we all know how the exhibition games went. Not great. Looked pretty bad. But it was also like they were just kind of in Vegas and playing exhibition games. Does anybody get Kevin Durant in the regular season vibes? Like when we get to the actual games, don't you think Kevin Durant dehydrated? Don't you think Kevin Durant's just to be a little Kevin Durant-y? He's like, oh, we're playing like medal games now? Cool. I'll be Kevin Durant now. Also, Bulls guy, Zach LaVine. How's he going to do in the world in the Olympics? I'd love to see Zach LaVine take another half step forward because he's only ever gotten better every single year. This feels like a really good opportunity for him. I'm really happy for Zach LaVine.
Agreed on that.
Jamal, what are 2 things you're looking to watch in the Olympics with Team USA basketball specifically?
So the main thing I want to look at is the USA's size and height in the paint, because I'll be very honest. They are very fortunate they're not dealing with Joel Embiid, or Jokic, because those two would have given Team USA fits. And now the second thing I want to look for is how quickly can this team coexist and gel with the limited time that they have, because a lot of these national teams that you see, they've been together 5, 10, sometimes 15 years. So can USA can they get it together in like a couple weeks to a couple months? Remains to be seen. But it's going to be interesting to see that first actual game for them.
JD, what are a couple things you're looking forward to seeing in the Olympics with Team USA?
Yeah, you guys covered a couple of things I was kind of thinking. First off, how that championship culture that Khris Middleton and Jrue Holiday will bring to the team, that'll definitely be a big aspect.
That plane ride, I assume that Middleton and
they
Jrue
leave tomorrow.
I assume that they're also in the same plane as Booker. Like
they are.
How many?
They are.
That's got to be awkward, right?
Very
How
awkward.
long is that?
Yeah, right. No, super awkward. They leave tomorrow. No, that was obviously semi-joking, but one of my things was how do those three participants in the finals, how do they add to this team? Do they, make some depth? Do they let Jrue Holiday actually does bring like a defensive presence, physicality? It's a lot of just scores out there right now. So how those three guys fit in, obviously they make them better, but do they kind of take them over that hump? And my second point was going to kind of be the big man thing. It was funny when we did this a couple weeks ago. We did the who would we sub in, and I'm like, well, definitely a big man, right? I'm looking. I'm like, other than Anthony Davis, there's top 5 big men in the league right now. Like none of them are from the United States. Like in kind of the resurgence of the big man in the NBA, which I like. It's all international, so that'll be really interesting. If you can't make shots, how much that'll add to it. And then I kind of also was on Jeremy's point of I think I've kind of been on the everyone needs to take a chill pill. I think they'll hit I think they can turn on a switch. I really do, because they do it in the regular season, the playoffs. I really do think these guys, when it comes down to it, when their reputations are on the line, I think they're done getting dogged on in the media. I think when it comes to winning medals, they're still the odds-on favorite. Their roster is still top to bottom the best. Can they kind of turn that switch, which I think and hope they can do?
Yeah, the first thing I want to look at is the France game on Sunday. So France, we talk about defaulting to size. France obviously has Rudy Gobert in the middle. You talk about those international big men, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. France is not the France of previous years. They do have a few pros, notably Evan Fournier, don't Google that name, and Nicholas Batum. I guess you also could say Frank Milinka, but nah. The thing Rudy? I think that's interesting, though, is that if they were to win that game on Sunday, which is challenging, Zach LaVine coming back from, I'm assuming, a positive test. I don't know if he actually had COVID, right? Health stage protocol. And then you have 3 guys coming off of a deep finals run. That's a quick turnaround. But then in the rest of the group, it's Czech Republic and Iran. And those are growing countries as far as basketball goes, not people I'm particularly worried about. I say that now we'll lose those games. But so in the group, I feel like if we can get past France, and frankly, we played France later, I might feel even more comfortable. But if we can get past France, I feel okay in the group. And then we get to the bracket stage, and hopefully we're in our groove by then after a couple games. I also think, so that's the first thing I'm watching is do we have our legs and can we beat France? Because if so, I feel good about our group. I also think it's interesting, and the second thing I'm looking for is really more looking domestically at how we watch this basketball team, because far and away, men's and women's basketball is actually the United States' most dominant Olympic event. The women don't lose, and the men have lost a total of 5 games in the history of the Olympics. They lost the one in the 70s that we all feel like the Soviets cheated on.
Yeah.
They lost in 88 by 6 to Lithuania, and the next year we sent Michael Jordan and the Dream Team. We were not playing around. And then we lost 3 games, more than we lost all the years before that in 04. right? And we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? We fixed it by sending LeBron and Kobe. Like that was the fix. I get that Colangelo rebuilt the program and da-da-da. We also sent LeBron and Kobe. And so I think that in America, we don't think of it as like this thing that's like we celebrate winning all of those other gold medals, because literally every other time we've had a gold medal. We like are relieved. And it's like if we don't win, it's this national embarrassment. But like, if we're going to get dogged this team for the last month, like it feels like we have, are we going to enjoy when we beat France? Or just be like, whew, like what's that going to be like? I think is going to be interesting throughout this tournament, because truthfully, we think of ourselves as really good at swimming. Our like win percentage, as far as like how many of the gold medals we've won in swimming, is high, but not the same, right? Gymnastics, high, but not the same. We win all but 3 of the gold medals, and 1 we have definitive evidence we were cheated in. Like this is not great. Like we win this all the time, and so I want to see how we react to it after dogging them for a month, because I also feel fairly comfortable if we get past France, we have a pretty straight shot. That's my 2 cents on it. I got y'all. I talked a long time and I saw head movements. What did I spark there? I felt like someone was going to say something.
Well, I think you just lost your Czech audience. Midweek Midrange, big Czech.
Iran is out on the mid-range.
Wow.
Iran
They
is
will
out
get
on
their
Midweek
MBA and professional basketball talk somewhere else.
I just think you make a good point that I know you've listened to Bomani before, but like he just did this whole thing on USA Basketball where there's just absolutely no pride in it. It's just if we win, it's like good, you should have won, and if they lose, then what the hell's going on? Rework the entire program. Like what's going on here? It'd be nice to have a little bit more pride.
We're literally nervous because it's going to be semi-competitive. Like you're still like favored in every game, and you're like, it might be competitive. Like, oh my God.
I think it would have been a little bit more interesting to me if Canada had handled their business and they would have been playing. And then, like I said before, like some of the other big stars in the NBA, like a Joel Embiid, like a Jokic, they're not playing. So it's like, okay, well, the deck is not really stacked against you, but at the same time, you're still a little bit concerned.
Well, and the big like 92 they send the pros. Have you looked at the college all-star team that they played against? Like the college all-stars that year would have been like Shaq. The college team, if they had not sent pros, probably also still wins. I know that
Shaq, Chris Webber, Bobby Hurley, Grant Hill,
Leitner in like a real role, not just like the 16th guy.
Yeah, like they steamrolled and boat race people, whatever. And the funny thing is, Bomani goes in like we reworked the program. I don't even feel like we reworked the program as much. We just send like the best. We're
just gonna send NBA players.
Yeah, we're just gonna like in 2004. Kobe's like, I don't know. I just went to the finals a bunch of years in a row. I'm trying to work on my game. We lose. He's like, I'm in. Like Kobe's in 08. Right. Like that's all it took.
What do you say?
Anyway, I'll be interested to see what we do there. Last open container question again. Yetis keep things cool for up to 24 hours and hot for up to 8. The lids help, so we're taking the top off for a second because I want to hear y'all's takes. Ohio State hat, JD. I'll start with you because a lot of college guys obviously looking forward to the NBA draft next week. The draft is a week from tomorrow night, so are there things you're looking forward to in next week's NBA draft?
You said Ohio State thing. This is just personal, but I would like to see Dwayne Washington ended up declaring that was kind of up in the air, if he would or not. Probably our best pure scorer. I'll be just personally interested. No one really cares about me, but like I'll be just personally interested to see kind of where he goes and if he can actually do it. He's Derek Fisher's nephew, so he's got a little bit of. There was a whole College Game Day segment of he used to call like Kobe, Uncle Kobe, and all that, so that was kind of cool. But what I'm looking forward to, actually, though, I'm not a giant like NBA draft guy. I really like college basketball. I'm interested to see where they go, but I'm never like I don't have like crazy hot takes. Like if you tell me this guy's like top 10 and this guy's not, I'll be like, I don't know. Like I just look at how good they were in college. So the more angle I'm looking at is we kind of discussed it a little bit at one point. What are the Warriors going to do? I think it'll say a lot about kind of what they're going to do in their future. They've obviously drafted well. Do they package those? I think when Jeremy was on, we discussed this. do they package those? I also am not great at like vet draft value or like what you get. Like, do you go try to get a big guy on the market? I think it'll say a lot about like what the Warriors feel going forward if they go get a big name or try to package those and go get somebody else to see more if they're in the win now or because it's weird. The Warriors are just kind of lurking. Like, we haven't seen them be the Warriors because Klay Thompson like hasn't played, and like if Klay Thompson can be healthy, you kind of get that big three back and see if they want to go young because they've had really good success drafting in that front office, or they want to package those and get a fun draft night trade. Just be interesting.
Jamal, the Nuggets, were a little short this year. Obviously, injuries included in that. As a fan / basketball fan, what are you looking forward to in the NBA draft?
So I'm looking forward to seeing the prospects of the G League because I've been very interested in seeing how these guys without any college experience, how they have fared in the G League, and if that'll really translate into the NBA. I'm really curious to see that because I was on the fence of if this experiment was going to work. I think this will really be like the first or second year that we're really going to see it in action. So I'm interested in seeing how these G League players are going to fare.
Jeremy, Chicago Bulls could use some. I guess they added Vucevic, right? Like they're moving in the right direction. What are you looking forward to as a fan or as a fan of basketball more broadly in the NBA draft?
They don't have a pick. I'm pretty mad about it.
Whoa!
It's going to suck.
I thought they had a second round. Are they not in the second round
Oh,
either?
they have a second round. But, I mean, Jesus. They really kind of hamstrung themselves with that. It's tough. Bulls and the Timberwolves, too. They lost that pick. I don't know. The draft is so not fun this year as opposed to last year and the last couple. They at least had picks. I feel like the Bulls are in no man's land. It's tough out there.
Is there anything more broadly in the NBA spectrum you're looking at?
Well, for your guys, the Rockets got a number 2 pick. That's something to look at. But like JD said, just kind of seeing what the Warriors do. I haven't really done draft stuff or kept up with draft stuff. It's just right when I saw the lottery, I think I might have turned it off when I realized the Bulls didn't get a pick and they lost theirs. I'm like, you got to be absolutely kidding me. They traded this guy, Zach LaVine, got into health and safety protocols at the end of the season, and we're not going to make the play-in tournament, and we don't have a draft pick? Okay, this is all stupid. Everything is dumb. Go Bucks.
Share a division rival, why don't you?
Yeah.
Well, division rivals don't mean nothing in the NBA.
Yeah,
Not
it's
to
more
me, at least.
Yeah, it's more about just people you run into in the grocery store more often.
Yeah, the only Bulls rival that I have is LeBron. All he's ever done is shit on the Bulls.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Obviously, as a Rockets guy, I'm looking at the number 2 pick. I think what's interesting here is like it feels like, and I've been trying to write a mock draft, which is more challenging than I think I realized. I'm only at pick 22. I'm through 22 picks, but like there is a lot of things that go into this. It feels like every time you look up someone else's that isn't, or some other expert's mock draft, or you're watching tape of different, like after Cade Cunningham at the top, it feels like no one else knows anything.
Like there's been a top 5 and there's been a top 5 for 5 months.
And even in the top 5, it's like Cade Cunningham's number 1. Houston's got a couple options. Looks like all of a sudden Athletics said we're also throwing Jalen Suggs in those
Mobley,
options.
Jalen Green.
Who do you want?
Suggs.
I'm getting
Mobley?
there. The Scotty Barnes is in some people's top 5. Jonathan Kuminga's in some people's top 5. Some people have the Warriors taking Davion Mitchell and getting another shooter. Some people have them taking like Franz Wagner and taking a big guy. Like people are all over the map with everything. After doing research, and we're getting into Wednesday night rights in a second, I'm a Jalen Green guy for Houston at 2 because I think that the deal for me is that neither guy does it on their own, right? And I think that later in the draft you can get a big, or in free agency I want to go throw like all of the dollars at John Collins. I think that those kinds of things are what no single guy is going to do this, and I think that the harder to replace guy is Jalen Green. I also
pair Jalen Green with KPJ. That'd be kind of interesting.
It's really explosive. Anyway, that gets us into Wednesday night writes. Obviously, I talked about something I wrote a second ago. Anybody writing or reading anything interesting?
I have a couple good things that I read, I want to say. Well, first of all, the last 2 games, Dan Devine of The Ringer, just one of my all-time favorites. Throughout the whole season, whenever the stakes get the highest, he's at his best. He wrote 2 things, one mainly about Giannis's Game 5, and then he wrote something today that my friends particularly enjoyed. I didn't get to it yet, but it was just on Giannis and becoming immortal, which is just so great. But then they also got the one I wanted to actually shout out was it was March 6th of 2014, old Grantland article by Amos Barshad in Giannis We Trust. Very long read, like maybe 10 minutes, 10 plus minute read, just really, really good. 2014 article about Giannis and how he could be the savior of Milwaukee, all the stuff that went into the Milwaukee Bucks and almost losing their franchise because the stadium was a mess. They didn't have any money. The fan base was in shambles. They could have been the Seattle Supersonics. They were one of the candidates, but they did the same thing the Timberwolves are kind of doing now. They need to find the ownership group that's going to promise to keep them here. You have to get a stadium. The league forced them. You have to get a new stadium because the Bradley Center is falling apart. And then Giannis shows up.
It was.
And then Giannis shows up. It's a very, really, really good read. Talks about his roots in Greece, all the stories. A lot of the stories we've kind of already heard trickle out through now, but just a really good throwback article as he wins his first NBA championship.
Grantland stuff's great. I love the shout out there.
Yeah.
Jamal, you writing or reading anything interesting?
So I'm mainly just catching up on all the mock NBA draft stuff. I'm interested in seeing all the different opinions, especially on ESPN Plus. I was very interested in where they have the Nuggets slated right now as far as the final power ranking. So I was talking to a few people on Facebook earlier today, and I said that honestly, ESPN's viewpoint is very accurate. It's straightforward. They put them at 7 because they're really still trying to get a gauge on where this offseason is going because MPJ is going to be a restricted free agent next season. He might be due for an extension. We still don't know exactly when Jamal Murray is coming back. I'm thinking probably before, maybe after the All-Star break, maybe a little bit towards March because ACLs are tricky. I don't care who you are. And then it's really about how are we going to refill our backcourt depth? Because after we traded away Harris and Hampton, I think that really depleted our backcourt, and I think it really killed us against Phoenix.
And draft stuff's really, really popular right now. Go hit that up. JD, you read or written anything interesting lately?
There's this really interesting thing called Bobby Portis's Twitter feed that I've been
He's popular.
If you got time, go check that one out.
He's funny.
Anyone who has anything good to say about my team, because they've all been really mean to my team for the last 6 years, so it's been fun. I've just been reading
Bobby Portis.
I've just been reading.
They love that man. They love
16
him.
points in Game 6, something like that. Oh, God,
so
incredible.
Funny.
I actually did the one. I did read an article, mainly out of fear, but I think it was an ESPN's article or something about the Olympics and the possibility of like a last-second cancellation, and it freaked me out. I'm like, I don't want to read anymore. This is sad.
Things
so,
and other.
I did read a couple articles on that. Not to get dim here at the end, but.
No, this country's like up and down, I guess, but some countries are really down right now.
Right.
Reading stuff, I want to shout out a couple things. One, I'll shout out Adonis Richards. He wrote an article that I had an idea about earlier, and Adonis obviously wrote it much better than I thought it. For bellyupsports.com about like how the NBA playoffs are all about young guys. If I'm being honest, my take earlier was that the Brooklyn Nets are going to be the last millennial team, and then the Clippers came back and beat the Mavs. And I was like, well, dang it, I'm not going to write that anymore. And then he wrote it really well. And I was like, I should have just done that. But Donis, shout out to Jonas. He wrote it really well. And it's about on BellyUpSports.com about how the younger talent, the next generation of stars played so well in the playoffs. Yes. Another thing that I want to point out that I read really more informationally this afternoon on SportsIllustrated.com is about Texas and Oklahoma leaving to potentially leaving the Big 12 to join the SEC, which is hilarious on a lot of levels. If you want to find me on Twitter, talk about it. That's a lot of fun. I could always talk about Nekias Duncan on basketballnews.com. He wrote about Damian Lillard and trade destinations, stuff like that. Because I was interested in what was out there. I thought what was interesting was he led with the Sixers, talked to some about the Knicks, and then in other spots he mentions the Heat and your Denver Nuggets, Jamal. And so I think that there are some interesting spots because if Damian Lillard really is on the move, that's a pretty impactful thing. Stuff I wrote way too many words about the Houston Rockets pick at number 2 and the way that impacts the rest of the draft. I think that was my Rockets roundup this week, and it was one of the longer ones I've written on that as far as the weekly Rockets articles. And then the last thing I want to do is shout out the Ringer for my buddy Miran Fader's article on Giannis. So Miran's got a book coming out in August about Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Oh yeah,
that she actually got approved in the winter of 2019. Now, if you can imagine going back to December of 2019, Giannis has 1 MVP and is having a pretty good year at that point, right? It's December. And she pitches this book. And since then, we've had a global pandemic, which prevented her from getting to Greece to do she had to do all the interviews, obviously, online for that instead. And she still wrote the book. The book's coming out in August. Go pre-order it on wherever your local bookstore is or Amazon or wherever you want to do. Although don't support Bezos. Go to your local bookstore. But today on The Ringer, after the Bucks won the championship last night, they published this preview of it. This is a section from the book. An excerpt. Yeah. Thank you for the word. I use words and I should be able to use bigger words. Yes, they published an excerpt from the book. And it was laugh out loud funny because it's that skinny young Giannis we've mentioned earlier in the podcast scowling after dunks, and guys guys like Brandon Knight, I'm sorry, being like, dude, what are you doing? Why? And
that's one thing I haven't heard in a minute. Brandon,
can you imagine Brandon Knight telling Giannis to not scowl after a dunk? That's the world we lived in 2014, 15.
The legend of Brandon Knight.
Just hilarious. It's really, really funny because it's Giannis in this most innocent immigrant way was oh, I saw Russell Westbrook do that. It's really, really funny. And really, really got me excited about the book. Miran's a wonderful writer for The Ringer. And so you should go check out her book. Anyway, go pre-order the book after you read the excerpt, but it's really, really cool. And she's obviously got a lot of pub right now with the book coming out and all the stuff that's happened in his career since. But that's really cool. I'm glad that's going the way it was. And I read that excerpt and got really excited to get my copy of the book soon.
Let's check that out.
So our last segment here, and we're going to do all the segments because why not, is the buzzer beater. So it's 24 seconds to get off a take. 24 seconds, obviously, is an NBA shot clock. Does anyone have a take they want to start with?
I'll go for it.
All right. I'm going to catch you down in 3, 2, 1, go.
Just want to go back to the very first take I had on the 24-second take shot clock. But the Milwaukee Bucks ended the playoffs 5-0, wearing white jerseys on their home floor because that's how it's supposed to be done. The NBA champions did what they're supposed to do. All other teams went 0-7, not the point, but wear white at home. Looks better.
I don't think
that
they
was
wore
quite
white
a throwback.
That's
I forgot
good.
about that. Yeah,
I don't think they wore white at home the entire series.
They did so.
They wore white at
I thought
home.
it was green.
Game 4.
It was game 3 or 4. Which
They
one?
wore white.
Usually they didn't because they had to wear it on the road. They usually wore the green and
because they've had to wear white on the road. I think that though they were undefeated at home in white. They only played. Yeah, they only played a handful
I
of games.
agree. I'm on that take.
That's funny. That's funny. Jamal, you got one?
Yeah, I got one.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
So look, we just saw Giannis complete one of the most dominant finals runs in NBA history, and he's on a short list of all-time greats to win MVP, Finals MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. There's only 2 more people on that list, Hakeem Olajuwon and Michael Jordan. And then to also be mentioned with Shaq as far as averaging 30 points a game, shooting 60% of the field, you have to put Giannis's finals performance on greatness right there.
Here's one thing I'll also say. I'm just gonna put this guy right there because that was a great shout out. I'm just gonna put that guy right there and let him do some. No, all right. JD, do you have a hot take to get off in 24 seconds for Akeem and the rest of us?
Oh, you know I do.
3, 2, 1, go.
Not all championships are created equal. This NBA championship is good for the league. The fact that it was a guy that not only in his acceptance speech, he didn't say, "You're welcome, Milwaukee." He thanked them for the opportunity, which is nuts to see that level of humble in today's NBA. It's good for it. I'm tired of everyone jumping ship and going to different teams. This one championship means more than all of Kevin Durant's. Do it by yourself. Do it in a city that you care about.
All the mid-sized market fans behind you love it.
Small markets, support them.
Support them. All right. I don't know if this one's even all 24 seconds, but I'm going to start it. All right. 3, 2, 1. So today it was announced that Sue Bird would be carrying the Olympic flag in. So Sue Bird is a legendary, historic WNBA player. She was in the league almost 20 years. All-time assist leader. She's up there in three-pointers made too. Sue Bird is a phenomenal basketball player, a lot of fun to watch. She's also a woman that back when she entered the WNBA was not allowed to get married in this country. And I think that that's like a very cool full circle to see in this country. And the timer's off. But that almost 20 years ago, that she had to like shadow herself and stay in the closet and do those kinds of things. And now there's no problems here, but she's representing this country in like one of the coolest ways you can do it. And I'm a sucker for the opening ceremonies. And so tune in on Friday and watch the opening ceremonies. That's all for 24 seconds. I went way over. Let's start with JD. Tell people where to find you.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Definitely more active on Twitter. JD_Davis14. There's currently a video of me and my friends spraying champagne on each other if you just want to go, laugh for 20 seconds. And then I am a work with the Score Zag Score podcast. Go check that out. It's a Gonzaga basketball podcast, but if you're not like a college basketball guy and you're an NBA guy, it's the perfect time to go check it out because Andy is doing a lot of good pre-draft stuff. He's great to listen to. He's just knowledgeable about the game. So if you just like basketball, it's Gonzaga specific, but I think you'll like it. And I've been kind of making regular appearances on the Corner Booth podcast, a little more laid back, just kind of shooting the shit kind of guys talking sports. So, you can check me out there.
Kev's a great guy. The Corner Booth's a good show, especially they got Kev and JD. And I don't
I'll
know.
I'll be on there kind of semi-permanently for now, so that'll be
semi-permanently fun. Sounds exactly like the Corner Booth. Jamal, tell people where to find you, man.
So, like I said, on Twitter and on Instagram, been mostly on those platforms, also on Facebook as well, but try to stay more on the last two. And as basically everybody knows, I'm like pretty much a guest almost every time on this show. So, talk hoops, talk sports. You know where to find me. I'm right here.
Jeremy, you've got your Twitter handle in your name, but tell us where to find you.
Pretty much just that. I had to put it up there because my last name's a little tougher than most. It's pretty much that. J Macatelli 23 on Twitter. I'm mostly just on Twitter. Not been writing anymore. I just had that my schedule does not bode well for writing. I maybe my last thing with good old Belly Up Sports, but I needed to get there on Bucks and Six and help out Parker with the midweek midrange. But I might be done with there just because I haven't been able to contribute. It is unfortunate, but I'd love to keep in touch with everybody here online or on Twitter, whatever we do.
Well, and we may lure you back in now and then if the Bulls were to do something crazy. Don't be a stranger. Like don't
find me on
Twitter. Obviously, you can find me. My Twitter and Instagram are both, as you see below, at Ainsworth 512, at PAINSWORTH 512. This show, the Midweek Midrange, as it's been scrolling across the bottom, all week or all show long is at Midweek Midrange on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on YouTube. Please subscribe and download and do all those wonderful things. We're here every week at 9 o'clock Eastern. We're live at 9 o'clock Eastern. Obviously, if you're finding us on YouTube, you found out that, you can find us on YouTube, and you can find all the old shows too, the entire catalog. You can find things all the way back to Jeremy telling home teams to wear white and then watch it work out. So you can go all the way back. It's a great time. It's a great time. But thank y'all for tuning in this week. Thank y'all for tuning in all NBA season as we dive into the Olympics and the NBA off season, and hopefully a little WNBA basketball afterwards as well. And always, thank y'all for being sure to pull up. Take care, guys.
Box and 6.